and any previous processes we might be working with.
Okay, we use the
This
materials.
process is not a crushing process.
Okay, but the materials come in on the truck, go into the process, and then you have other materials that come in, the organic material, the bio-origin
Correct, they
material, they
come
come
in
in
delivered.
separately,
That's the
and they go
lignin
right to
binders.
the silo.
What's an example of bio or origin
Right, they go to
products?
the silo
That's the
separately.
lignin binders.
They're separate.
Yeah, that's a good
Like
question.
binders,
Plant fibers.
yeah, exactly. Soy. Same people, soy is a product, any
Cow
sugar
waste.
producing material. In the one case that we're working with, from tree filings and or chips as a result of cutting a tree down or whatever, or even turning it intentionally into a chip, can be, the sugars in that material can be rejuvenated with the process. They're being done now.
And that creates a binder.
Well, it creates the ability to take the waste and turn that, after processing, into a material that will bind. Natural polyethylene and polyurethane binders, actually. So, and it's all natural material, all based from the natural sugars
And
that all
what would be
material
the,
has.
what would be the life of something like that? I mean, paving stone, is it like concrete, or, I mean, there's no, it's not gonna break down, in other words.
Well, it's competitive with the existing market. And so we've, met and or exceeded in some areas, through testing with, NYP2I, which is through RIT, and also, Clarkson University, we're testing the product, our products, against the existing products that are there that are made with petroleum resin-based binders and or Portland cement. And we're doing a pretty good job. And, with
So there's
meeting
no
with existing
there's
material.
no hazardous material involved in any of this.
Well, no, actually, if you got a hankering through, you could actually chew the stuff that this comes from substituted tobacco until we need it for a binder.
You're talking the binder itself.
Yeah.
One thing I'm concerned about is there a possibility of any fire or flammability issue with some of that material as it's stored? Because sugars, things like that, that's source of fuel, if possible.
We're not
fuel
storing it
compression.
in terms of, the longevity,
When you
longevity
transfer-
comes into, I guess, play here in terms of its shelf life for our use. So
What's
we
the-
need to turn that over within
Sure.
a very short period of time.
Well, I'm even concerned with that, even that short period of time that material's in that silo, what's the risk of flammability or explosion?
It's dry, it's not rehydrated until it goes into the batch.
Okay, but
And it's not in that form of, that's volatile at that point because it's been processed into a less volatile
So it's
form of.
it's a completely dry material then.
There it is.
so could you provide some combustibility data on that?
Well, that's what we're providing for our ASTM standards now.
Okay.
Our testing is all part of that.
Okay.
Quick question.
It'll become actually our MSDS, which is
Okay.
being changed, I just found out. All the MSDS information is now going to be called DS.
Yeah.
And it's like, I had to go through this whole thing with you. Well, never mind, that's different.
Yeah, we do
Yes.
it, actually, whatever the new term is, or the MSDS, an MSDS sheet on your material would be nice to see.
And that's what we're in the midst of producing with,
Okay.
with the assistance of NYP2I and our current phase 3 testing, which I'm leaving at 5 in the morning to go to Clarkson with 250 pounds of mix
Okay.
that we're gonna be going through a phase 3 testing. And what we're doing with this phase 3 testing is establishing our ASTM standards for the various formulas we've been working with. To this point, we've got the dry ASTM standards and the natural stone and natural material already part of our LEED certified work we've done with NYP2I. We're extending, and through phase 1 and 2, that testing is being extended now with Clarkson, and we should be complete right around April 1st, or, the first part of April. A lot of things are coinciding with that first part of April, but we will be complete with the testing and have results to go forward with the DS standard for ASTM.
Does that include, there is a air test burst test, so to speak, where that's released into the air and tested for flammability or fast combustion or explosion. Is that part of this test too?
Not the current tests that are going on now with Clarkson, but will be when we go to finalize the ASTM standard at some point in time that's going to have to be performance. They'll probably take that into consideration in advance your research on it.
Yeah, we should be concerned to make sure that all of that is handled properly, and I'm sure you want to do that.
Oh, that's the responsibility, I think, being supervised by the DEC, which is very much a part of what we're doing.
Okay, all right.
So I think that if we move along, if there's anything you want from the DEC,
Sure.
I'd be more than happy to have them at DEC.
Is that,
I think you're entitled to it, actually. It is available.
is that silo vented to outside at all? Or is it sealed?
I'm not sure how the current one is, constructed. I haven't gotten any of those details. I haven't had a need to. The batch plant was in full operation and, in accordance with all necessary terms and conditions of the DEC
Okay.
when it was fully operating at, the Del Monte, Corporation at, Linden Avenue, ironically, our neighbors. It's that batch plant, and it meets all of those standards that are still in force. So how that's going to adapt with what we're doing, I'm sure that we'll be making those determinations as we move along with the development of what we're working on now with the DEC.
Because there would be a concern of dust coming out.
Well, it's our concern as well.
Yeah, you don't want
Okay. It's gonna be dry, stored as a dry material, so.
It's gotta be, I'm leaning towards, it's gotta be a totally self-contained, part of the operation, no matter what, because the water is and everything else is, so. As we move that along, I'm sure if there's anything that we need to modify,
Okay.
we'll know firsthand from DEC's,
I think we wanna know if it had any kind of vent to the outside.
I know it currently does not, and as far as I know, we're not going to
James, you had a question?
vent anything like that. We'll have to have a makeup air and makeup, circulation, in conjunction with the silo, but that's part of the operation of the batch plant to begin with, so I believe it's all good.
Jennifer did a great job of the summary of the process. I just want to be clear on one thing. At the very end, when a given piece is taken out of the mold, whether it was injected or pressed, is there any curing? Is that just, is it done? Is there a time cure? Is there any heat? Any other?
No, it's done and ready for finishing.
Okay. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
You wanna go over the agromat? Is this something which you designed?
Yes.
Or, so
I
this
am
is
done.
your, this is your patent pending? So
Correct.
this is you, this is not made by any other company? This is you?
Right.
Okay. Is this because I was looking all over for,
No, it's me.
okay.
I'm sorry.
So this replaces any sort of crushing process?
Correct. It was always our intent to move to this.
Right.
I was just a little procrastinating or whatever with the final details that I thought I needed to address before I submitted it for this patent review. We've done some initial prototype work with it, but not seriously enough that I thought we had the ability to file for the patent. But, this experience is not to be completed. And so we filed, and it was adequate enough for the patent office to accept, thank God. And we're now fine tuning it. We're working under NDA with Pico Manufacturing in the city. They're a machine manufacturer, and hopefully we'll have an operating prototype for the facility at East Avon around May 1st, which would be.
Can you explain for the board, kind of go over the process? You know, I've read this, but can you just very briefly?
Sure. We take water, which is semi-temperate or warm, let's say, and we put it under high pressure through a glycol solution. At the same time, material is being put into the compression chamber of phase one. It starts a process that begins molecular deterioration of the material, enough so that by the time it gets through a mixing chamber, it's ready to release and or cut into smaller pieces, which we'll get along with. But in this glycol solution, it's a solution of polypropylene glycol, which goes through a heat exchanger, which is part of the compression chamber. The material is passing through, and so is the water, where they go into the next stage of the chamber. And at that point, in a mixing chamber, we're taking the water and the solution and injecting a liquid nitrogen at 196 degrees minus Celsius. And that crystallizes the water with the nitrogen to act as an abrasive that would be found in a standard water jet. The equivalent would be silica sand and garnet, which of course would be an extracted material. With this crystallization process, when it makes the cut, the nitrogen, the crystal returns to a liquid form, which would then coincide with our closed loop water recycling. So we would be recapturing the nitrogen and sending it back through the system through the glycol solution. What it does, it gives us the ability to continue a 100% recycling process without further extracting materials from the earth, which is what we're trying to prevent.
So you're recapturing the nitrogen and reusing it?
Correct. So the system is self-perpetuating because it's also, as the material is being hit, well, see, the thing is you can't have a water jet hitting each other, that's bad. But the design, we invented an oscillating head, multiple oscillating heads, so that no stream of the crystallized jet is hitting itself. It's hitting the material randomly, making a cut which reduces the material from one size to a smaller size. That passes through a screen system. We capture the material that we need, and it continuously feeds the larger material through until it passes through the screen. And at the same time, we're capturing the fines and using that as part of our cement base.
How many jets will you have in there?
Well, it looks like we're working with about 18
18 jets. So you have 18 separate lines?
that are moving in each 18 different directions.
Right.
So it's
And this is what's
What keeps your,
pulverizing
what
the
keeps your
stone?
liquid nitrogen from freezing up? You know, I've handled liquid nitrogen before, and I have issues with, getting all the crystallization on the outside of tubing.
well, we're all, that's why the water we're forcing through is warm.
Okay.
It's enough of a balance of crystallization to hydration or liquidation, and that gives us the ability to kind of control that residue that it comes from crystallization, improper crystallization, and turning it back to a liquid.
Do you have any idea of the total volume of liquid nitrogen you would be in that closed loop?
Well, we can,
Gallons.
right now, we're projecting that we could work on a weekly basis and produce the tonnage in material recycling that we want to with about 100 gallon tank, like a standard propane tank
That'll all be inside the building?
inside the building.
So that's so you're never needing to repurchase nitrogen.
Well, you do, but it's on an infrequent basis because we're, regenerating our gas.
Some deterioration over time.
Right.
And
It's an incident.
Yeah.
nitrogen has to be stored under pretty good pressure too.
Right.
It breaks down.
Right.
Unless you got frozen.
What type of pressure are you talking? What size are the jets?
The jet will put out anywhere, it's a controllable feed.
Oh, so
from-
you can open and close.
Right, we can go from
Like
3,800
diameter.
PSI to 45,000 PSI.
It all depends what type of product you have in there.
Correct.
In your heat exchanger tank, how many gallons of glycol water solution would you have in there?
That's gonna run about 500 gallons,
It'll just be one tank?
One tank.
500 gallon tank?
one 500 gallon tank, to feed one line.
A control measure for, if that that was to rupture. It's not super hazardous, but it's kind of an issue to deal with, you know.
Well, we'll be working with double walled, insulated and, double steel walled, tanks, because that's what we need, both. And there'll be, I think they're going to actually work or try to work with a seamless system. I don't know how that's going to work in terms of the actual machining, but, we'll see how that works out as we move along with the design.
If you were to, you're gonna have monitoring equipment to look at the level. I mean, if you were to have a leak, how would you contain it? Would it run off into the sewers? I mean,
We're providing in the design, there's at this point 72 checkpoints that are part of the computer system that keeps track of where the fluids are in the mixing chambers as well, where they are through the process and where they're recapturing and where those levels are, and where there's a possible buildup or concentration of any one of the materials that could erode or corrode any of the parts and cause more than incidental leaking. Trying to cover that with, the safety system.
I'm just wondering, it's per DEC rules with certain chemicals, you gotta be able to contain like a half or 3/4 of it if there was to be a leak. You aware of what rules might be in place for glycol water?
Well, actually, for this particular system, we're going to design that with the DEC. We're working with our people, our friends here down the road here on 520, with some pretty interesting scenarios.
And that's probably at atmospheric pressure, but how much pressure is in the heat exchanger coils that go through that? That's not up at like 3,800 PSI down at this point.
No,
right?
it's
That's
about
just-
110 PSI. It's not very, it's more like standard compressor, shop compressor type pressure at that point.
So that's probably something you could shut down if that thing wanted to start
There's a
building up
safety,
too much pressure.
there's two safety valves that could redirect all the pressure immediately, in both the in and the returning part of the system, because it's one big loop.
You're gonna go over all those details with DEC. DEC is gonna be involved with reviewing your whole system.
Pretty much, yes. Right, they are, they don't know what we are. They don't have any, there's a category type thing that we're trying to fit the technology in. So they wanna make sure that they understand it completely.
Who are you working with at the DEC specifically? Are you working with somebody yet?
Well, Scott Fody, is my sort of lead go-to guy as a result of our relationship with, people in Albany in the materials management division. We've just been introduced to Scott Shealy, who's going to begin the review of the process and where we may need special permitting and why, and then make a determination on that, so that we can move accordingly and fit the technology with whatever is required.
Now, with the ice jack, you say you're moving to a prototype. It sounds like a near production ready prototype in May. Is that correct? Is there any contingency if that doesn't scale to be able to handle this?
Take it apart and put it back together so it does.
Just keep working it until
I
it
think
works.
that's the basic way we're gonna go at it. I don't know. Okay.
Have you done something like this in the past? In previous sort of incarnation of this machine?
Well, a little bit in my shop,
No, you're talking
He's
about a
talking-
large scale
yeah.
machine.
You're talking a whole different thing than what, it's so different from what you talked about in the first place.
Yeah, no, I've been working on this for about, 7, 8 years.
We got away from all the hydraulic crushers and all the,
Yeah, that was our intent right from the beginning. We needed more time, and so our plan was actually a temporary type thing to use the conventional products or machines while we developed the technology.
so what, one of the concerns we had before was noise, the levels, what's the noise issues with something like this? What kind of decibels are we talking about, what kind of noise?
We should be